Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show. Every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here, as always, with Casey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody. Ross the Boss. Opening day here, MLB action. I'm excited. It's going to be a great season, Dr. Dan Ratner, and we'll have fun.
I'm completely psyched about it, and games actually start in like 5 minutes, so we really timed this well to be able to miss.
One game started.
Well, of course, there were some games earlier, about a week ago, but what game has started, Casey?
Baltimore, Anaheim.
Right. You said Trout homered off of Corbin Burns
in his first at bat, but Baltimore is winning 4-1.
Baltimore's winning.
Was winning 4-1 last I checked in the third inning.
And who has driven in those runs?
Adley Rutschman,
Jordan
Westberg,
and who's pitching for against Burns?
Sandoval.
Ooh, all right. Well, Sandoval's not doing so well so far.
Now it's 5-1.
Wow. I hope people didn't have him in their starting lineup.
Santander has 2, Rutschman has 2, Westberg has 1.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see Westberg out there. He's starting at third base, I assume.
Westberg is DHing.
He's DHing. Interesting. Okay.
Ramon Urias is starting at third base.
Well, guys, today, we're just getting into the season, so there's not much to report on what has happened, of course, but we're going to talk about headlines coming into the season, the rookies who made the team or didn't. We're going to do some closer updates, and then we're going to talk about kind of strategy about that first week or so. How do you gauge what's happening? Then we have a treat for you all that certainly Uncle Ted's been waiting for. We're going to look at the rosters in our Dynasty League and evaluate them. We're going to hold off on that for a bit, though. What are the main headlines that you guys think we should talk about coming in?
Well, Ohtani gambling.
There we go.
That's been the biggest one.
Well, what's going to be the fallout from that? Do we think? I mean, obviously we're speculating.
I don't think there's going to be much fallout, honestly. I think people are believing that Ohtani wasn't aware of it or wasn't involved in the gambling, that it was just he was manipulated or deceived by his interpreter. The issue will be, we'll see how well he is able to focus on baseball when he's getting all of these questions and dealing with all of this distraction, and how much that affects the team as a total, when every player is getting asked about the gambling stuff.
Right. I heard somebody say, "Oh, he could opt out of his contract," and I was like, "Why would anyone opt out of that contract?"
Yeah,
there's no way. I don't anticipate him having a huge response to it, but you never know. You never know what's going on internally. Ross, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to be affected by this?
No, unless they find evidence him gambling on baseball. That's the big question. If he's gambling, let's say he was gambling with an illegal bookie, okay? Illegal. And he's gambling on Premier League soccer and, let's say, tennis. I mean, just throwing something out there.
Sure.
It'll be a fine. He won't be suspended. He won't be there shouldn't be anything that's negative.
Well, I don't know what
on his resume, because people do this all the time. Gambling's legal in almost every state except California. I mean,
but I know, like with the NFL, those players have contracts that say they're not allowed to gamble. I don't know.
Right. So it's not about legality.
Right, that's NFL, right.
But I don't know what
that's
the MLB,
NFL.
I don't know what the CBA has about that, or the individual contracts that these MLB players sign. That's just way above my knowledge and pay grade.
Right. Well, obviously it's a huge,
it's
go ahead, Ross.
It's not an issue, guys. It really isn't.
I think it's really likely to be a non-issue also, but other headlines coming in that and it could be rookies who made the team. It could be those who didn't. It could be injuries.
Well, I mean, rookies are always, now with the new CBA incentivizing teams to call up players earlier in the season, rookies are obviously a bigger story. You got whether it's Wyatt Langford in Texas, and is he going to be this superstar already that everybody is predicting, and then Jackson Holliday, who everybody thought was going to be the starting second baseman, miraculously getting sent down to AAA 2 days ago or whatever it was, shocking people. So, I mean, rookies and who is not available because of injuries tend to always dominate kind of the opening week of baseball.
Absolutely. Chris Atwater, good to have you
here.
I
mean, Wyatt Langford.
Go ahead.
Wyatt Langford is a guy that wasn't really on people's radars beginning of spring training. During spring training, this guy tore it up. I mean, this guy had an unbelievable spring. And I mean, I think he's the favorite for the Rookie of the Year. If I had to vote for somebody for American League Rookie of the Year, Wyatt is my man. So
I would
I think
disagree
Wyatt Langford. Okay, you can disagree. It's
No,
fine.
no. He's not disagreeing
I'm
with you
going to
on
disagree with your statement that he wasn't on people's radar. He was the number 5 prospect in baseball and a top 4 draft pick last year coming out of Florida, where he just destroyed everybody.
Yeah.
The average fan, Casey, not the nerd guy that follows every minor leaguer in baseball. The average fan did not know who Wyatt Langford was. Uncle Ted knew who he was, but Uncle Ted's family has no idea who Wyatt Langford is. He could be the janitor across the street. We don't know. So Wyatt Langford during spring training, he put a show on. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. He was hitting home runs, RBIs, batting averages, unbelievable. So now this guy's on the radar, and I believe Texas really has a winner on their hands with this kid. I mean, I liked him before, but when I see him facing major league pitching during spring training, Casey, I'm excited.
Yeah, well, listen,
you gotta be.
You're both right. Wyatt Langford wasn't somebody your average person knew at all, but the people who are geeking out over the prospects, like Casey and us, I would say, we knew certainly who he was. Jackson Holiday, I thought that was a big headline that he did not make it. A lot of these players are coming up so much earlier because of how they've restructured the player setup. And I was totally shocked to see him not be that. So Chris Atwater said, I bet there's something in the CBA with respect to Ohtani. I bet there is. And at the same time, it's probably not like it is in the NFL.
And it is illegal in the state of California. So regardless of whether...
but the Baseball Players Association is so much stronger than the Football Players Association that I could see there not really being much they could do, is my guess.
Well,
all right. How about
it's an illegal bookie, and it's not a big deal, guys. It really isn't.
I agree. All right, let's talk about closer updates, because at the beginning of the season, the closers, they change all the time. But even at the beginning of the season, you've got these roles that you're not clear about. In these first games, a lot of times fantasy managers are waiting with bated breath. They're watching the game like they're going to watch the White Sox game. If the White Sox do get a lead and are trying to close out a game, which I guess you could say that might not be likely, but they're going to, in many games, they're looking to see, is Michael Kopech rising to the top? Who's going to be there? And in deeper leagues, people need to pay attention to this. So who are the guys that we're looking at from a closer perspective, trying to evaluate who's getting that role? Case, Ross, give me an example of one of those.
Well, I'll give you San Diego. Has Suarez, and they also have Matsui. These are two good pitchers. But I think Matsui, the Japanese pitcher, has the advantage. And they'll probably alternate who gets the save here and there, and then somebody's going to rise to the top. But that, for me, in the National League, that's a good example, just because it's two guys that people have no idea who's better. I don't.
I agree. I mean, I think you have to give the advantage, though, to Suarez right now. He got the save, and not only that, Matsui came in the 6th inning. Now, that's only one game, so I'm not saying I'm right about that, but I'm just saying if I had to own one of the two, I would own Suarez, which I actually do in our Dynasty League. Another one I think to watch for is, what's the latest news out of Texas? I had heard that Leclerc was supposed to be the guy early in the season, but he's got David Robertson breathing down his neck and some other guys too. What's your guys' intel on that?
I'm in the same
manager for Texas.
Go ahead, Ross.
But the manager of Texas already announced that his closer's Leclerc. I mean, he announced it 4 days ago in the press conference. So
he said
I think it's his job to leave. Yeah, he said that he's our closer to start the season. Not, he just said we're going with him. Okay, he'll get 90% of the save opportunities, but again, as soon as he messes up a few times, we could see some changes.
If I had a roster spot to spare early in the season and I needed a closer, I'd have Leclerc and Robertson. I just have them both.
Yeah, I have Robertson on a couple rosters. I think the truth is we're all in this holding pattern the first couple of weeks of the season to see who settles into that 9th inning role for all these teams.
Yep.
Then you have the cases like Jordan Romano is on the IL to start the season in Toronto. Is it going to be, Yimi Garcia, Chad Green, Tim Mazia, all these other pitchers they have. You just have to wait and see, because a lot of them are going to go closer by committee. Closers
they're a nightmare.
They're a nightmare. And so
They're a nightmare.
you make educated bets on roster spots and hope they hit.
Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to ask you guys about is, in this first week of the season, are there particular strategies you're looking at? I just mentioned one of them, that to use those roster spots, you need to use them on particular people that you're speculating on, and it depends on what kind of position you need. So if you need a closer, I would stash 2 guys on one team until you figure it out. It's a great way to do it. You'll get something out of that roster spot later. But guys, talk about any other strategies you have in mind early. Some people are like, look, I don't really have a strategy yet. I'm just going to wait and see how it's playing out.
But I think that's a strategy. I was going to say my strategy is patience, in the first 2 weeks of the season. Because the thing that people, today there's already 2 games that are postponed because of weather. The end of March, and most of April for at least the Northeast is a nightmare for weather, and you're going to get rainouts and you're going to get cold weather. So like Minnesota, Detroit, those places too. Like if people get off to slow starts, I don't want to jump ship if it's somebody I was excited about a month and a half ago. Right. And so for me, injuries, paying attention to that, looking at injured list stashes, I think is really important in the beginning of the season. But other than that, with my roster, it's pretty much patience for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now, Ross, Casey and I, we go back even further in fantasy baseball than before we met you. And Casey always had a rule: no trades. I think in the first month of the season was
unless I'm like absolutely,
unless it's obvious.
Yeah.
But I always, as you know, I'm maybe even a bigger trade junkie than you, and I was always like, oh, come on, let's just get right to it. But I do understand that, because there's a lot of evaluation of, were we right about our valuations of these players or not? Ross, what's your take on this? Do you tend towards the patient, or let's say a guy is just looking terrible for 2 weeks? Are you ready to ship him off for 90 cents on the dollar?
I don't in April. I'm on the same page as you guys, but people do. And those are the people you want to trade with. That
Right.
Let's say Freddie Freeman starts slow. Let's say Freddie Freeman starts slow and he's not having a good April, and the guy is down on him. That's the guy. That's you want to go after those guys. The guys that have started out slow, because they're going to pump it up in July and August. That's going to happen.
And we've talked about this, I think, in other shows. And just as a side note, Ross, it's really hard to tell when you're about to talk because of the delay in your camera. So I'm never sure when to jump in. But the other thing I like to pay attention to is there are certain guys who are notoriously terrible starters, to the season, the beginning of March and April. I going back, because Dan and I have been doing this together for almost 20 years now, fantasy baseball in leagues together. Like Edwin Encarnacion and Victor Martinez are 2 who kind of jump into my brain as guys who always batted well below 200 until about May 1st or the last week of April. And I would never draft them because more often than not, I knew the owner that was going to have them was going to be so angry by then that I could get them for 75 cents or 50 cents on the dollar. And so I also target those guys who I know are notorious slow starters if I'm going to trade.
Yep. And as you guys know, I don't draft Kyle Schwarber in any league. And if I'm going to trade for him, it will be in the middle of June. And even then, I'll probably be frustrated. But he's going to put up huge numbers, but he's going to do it in the middle of the year. So I completely agree with that. Chris Atwater has a comment. No sports betting or lottery in Alabama. That's where he lives. God has prohibited them. Closers are a nightmare, by the way. Tough to tell. I agree with all of that, except I make no statement about what God's doing. I don't know. I don't even know if he cares about this, but interesting comments nonetheless. And, I know it's warm down there, Chris, and it's about to get a lot warmer. So I hope you are enjoying the beginning of the baseball season. Let's jump in with our next segment, which is, we've been having some people call for evaluation of the teams we drafted. This isn't for our purposes only. Of course, it's fun for us, but really it's a chance for us all to talk about valuation of players, which is a big part of what we're doing early in the year. We're looking, and it's also fun to look at, did we get good value or not? So I'm going to bring up on the screen. This is my team right here.
Now, just so everybody's aware, this is a first year of a dynasty league. So
Yes.
And it's not a true dynasty. It's kind of a hybrid dynasty keeper league because we can keep nine major leaguers from one season to the next and 3 minor leaguers from one season to the next.
Yeah, but during the season, you can actually carry 5 minor leaguers. So you're really trying out a lot of these guys. Let's also mention this is a 10-team league at the current time. We have plans to expand it to 12, but if you're looking at rosters, you have to factor in this is a 10-team league. So how much talent is there? Each roster can carry up to 35 players because you've got 5 IL spots, you've got 5 minor league spots, and you got 25 major league players. So each team drafted differently. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go to one team that actually, Ross, would you say that you drafted in a kind of more win now mode? Like, were you willing to take older players in this or no?
I'd like to switch it up. I took a lot of guys in there under 30. But I took a couple guys that I feel that will win now. But I made sure I took some really good pitchers that can anchor my staff, which I did.
Now look at my hitters. If you see, there's the age right here. Wilson Contreras is 31, but he's not my long-term solution at catcher. He's just my starter right now.
Yep.
I'm hoping Bo Naylor will be that. All of my guys are under 30. And in fact, most of them are under 27. Many of them I drafted really young.
Yeah. If you go to, you want to see the youngest team, that's Miguel's team.
Let's go there for a second. All right. This is Cuban Sugar Kings.
Yeah. Name some of the players that are on the team so we can comment about each player.
Okay. So, I mean, first of all, he's got Bobby Witt Jr. Slotted in at third base. Actually, I don't know if Miguel is younger than me, honestly.
Well, but when you factor in his minor leaguers, he's got...
Well, right. He's got Wyatt Langford and Jackson Holiday. He's got Jason Dominguez.
Junior Caminero will be up soon. Dylan Cruz will be up soon.
Yeah, so he actually does. He probably has a younger team overall because he's got a lot of...
Yeah.
But he's got some older players in the middle. He's got Teoscar Hernandez. Good. He's got Ohtani, the hitter.
Trevor Story is obviously a little older.
Justin Turner, 39, but Justin Turner's a plug-in at second base
because he thought Jackson Holiday would be there.
Exactly right,
like we all did, by the way. And he has Wyatt Langford in his reserves. That I don't know why he's not starting and Kerry Carpenter is,
especially because Kerry Carpenter is on the bench for this game. So
right
now, listen, that's probably. It's still the workday. Miguel probably just missed it.
And Jackson Churio is postponed.
Right. That's actually, it is one thing to look out for early in the season. I don't know about you guys, but I've learned this lesson. You want to play as many guys as possible, especially in your hitting rotations, because it's going to be very hard to catch up on numbers later. Don't worry. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to waste a spot on my utility spot by playing this one guy.
Hey,
you're going to end up with plenty of spots where you need to have played a guy, and it's very hard to catch up on hitting numbers. Pitching, Casey knows very well, I can often be like 100 to 200 innings behind because I'm patient. I'm patiently waiting for when to front load those. You can catch up on innings fast, but you can't catch up on hitters fast. Chris Howard says
Chris would like us to talk about his roster.
Yes, my roster is pretty darn young as well. Let's jump to him. We'll come back to Miguel's in a little bit, but Montgomery Brewster, of course, Montgomery after Montgomery, Alabama. So he has the other Contreras, who's obviously younger at catcher. He has the other Naylor also. I have Bo Naylor. He's got Josh Naylor. Looking at him, he's got
everybody. Cruz is very young.
Most people are under 20 or 27 or under. He's got Dansby Swanson on the bench. He's got
Max
Goldschmidt, Muncy.
Who are his
Muncie's
pitchers?
Old.
All right, let's look at his pitchers. His pitchers. It's interesting. I didn't draft as young with pitchers, and I'll explain why in a bit. But
I know why.
I think you do know why. Okay, so here we go. He's got Kyle Harrison and he's got Gavin Williams. Those are some young pitchers. He's got Ricky Tiedemann in his minor spot. He's got Skubal. We all are very high on Skubal coming in. Logan Webb. And then he's got, every team is going to have to fill in some weak spots.
Right. If we're looking at weak
draft.
spots on this roster, he has only one closer. Now it's Edwin Diaz, who's a stud, but even his second relief pitcher spot is Jordan Hicks, who's a starter.
So Case, guess what I did with this roster when I saw it, given that I have 6 closers.
Yeah. You proposed a trade.
Right. And what did I propose?
Let me see.
Some backward trade that won't help him.
Oh, stop it, Ross. Ross always interprets my trades as horrible, but he often
Scroll up. I don't know
misreads them.
We're
I was only asking about the general idea. I
were you
offered
trying to get Devin Williams off of him so you have a stud closer?
No, I just offered him a 2-for-1 deal. 2 closers for Edwin Diaz.
There you go.
This is a dynasty league, but closers aren't. I'm not planning to keep any closer in a dynasty league, and I'd rather just redraft them. They change so much, so I figured, you know what? Let me see if I can get Edwin Diaz for 2 closers. He rejected it. I didn't hear back, Chris, yet on what your thoughts were about it, but I'm open to it. I'm even open to a 3-for-1 possibly. Okay, Chris then said I had a couple, but Devin Williams got hurt. So you actually had probably the 2 best closers.
Yeah,
going in. So I hope Devin Williams is back soon. But you'll have to see, Chris. You may want to address that in a trade. You may get somebody off the wire. But I agree, that's obviously one of the weak spots.
And guys, that's what we're talking about, is like having every category like checked. You know what I mean? To check every category. So Chris is going to have a problem with saves this season. I mean, just having one guy who gets saves,
he can address them. But yeah,
if he doesn't make,
I mean, I would go after. I would have at least 2 pitchers that are going to get saves for you. He only has 1, and that pitcher is coming off a major injury.
Yeah.
I mean, you ideally you want at least 2 guaranteed closers to start the season, because come the trade deadline, saves is something you can always trade for, because a team that's not as competitive this year is going to be looking for things to build for next year. And if they have closers, nobody's really saves closers.
And in this league, you can trade draft picks. So if a team's out of it and they're sitting there with 2 closers, Chris could load up on closers very quickly if he wanted to. It just depends on what he wants to trade. But I think you do have to keep pace enough. And so my goal in a league, I mean, in a 10-team league, if you've got 3 closers, you're right on the average. Everybody's going to be around that.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a little above average. And in fact, I just loaded up on closers because ultimately I could move them later. I'm getting value early in the year on that front. Okay, let's do a little bit of evaluation of the teams, although Chris has a comment here. I will probably just punt saves for now. We will see how it shakes out. I'm very high on Diaz, and the Mets do need another arm, though. Well, another option you have if you are considering punting saves, Chris, is obviously
trade him for a starter. You can get a good starter for him.
You can get a great starter for him. And in fact, you could do something that really helps you in the future. So let's start evaluating these teams a little bit. And I want to evaluate them on 2 levels. One, are they going to compete this year? Obviously, we'll do a hitting and pitching. And then the other is, are they set up well for the long term? So we're already on Chris's team. Let's do a little bit of evaluation there. What do we think? He's got a lot of great young players. He got Acuna number 1, which is fantastic. He got Ellie De La Cruz. If he pans out, that's going to be huge. Looking at this team, he's got a lot of great young players.
Ronald Acuna.
I like it. I like that team. I got to make sure he gets rid of some of these players, because I'm not going to beat this guy. I mean,
Rafi Devers,
all-star team.
It looks really good, and I'm sure he was excited that Jackson Merrill got the job coming out of spring training. But here's the thing: if Chris isn't competing, Paul Goldschmidt, he's somebody that I would immediately look to move for value, because he's a 36-year-old first baseman. If you're not competing now, if it's a redraft league, I'm just going to hold Goldschmidt and use him. When we look at the pitching, does he have the starting pitching to compete? We already talked about the closers.
I think Skubal and Webb is a good one too. It depends what you can get from Barrios. Jordan Hicks has never been stretched out before. He's set up well going forward too, because even if Harrison and Gavin Williams aren't legitimate yet this year, Harrison struggled with his command last year. The pedigree is there for him to be a lights out lefty in a great pitcher's park.
I really like Harrison, Williams, Skubal, and Webb that's a really good pitching base.
Yeah.
But I do think, it might not be his year to compete, because it's going to depend a lot on Harrison and Barrios are the 2 that strike me as the ones that are really going to determine things. Anything else to comment on that before we move to another team, guys?
No.
All right.
Let's look at the Big Red Machine.
Let's look at Ross's team, the Big Red Machine. Named after the 1975 Reds, who were amazing.
Yep.
Okay.
Best team that ever played. Yep.
Ross did not do the ageist approach that you and I did Dan?
No, well, Ross is always the guy who would be gravitate more towards that. Casey, I would say you probably would normally be the youngest, but interestingly, I think I'm actually the youngest of the three of us in this league.
I haven't looked.
Okay, let
at
me
You are welcome.
explain about.
Did we lose him?
I don't know. He was going to explain something, and then technology intervened. All right, Ross, we'll get back to you on that. We can't hear you right now. So, Case, let's look at this. He did draft. I mean, he's got more of a win now team than mine is.
Okay, you guys are mixing up football with years old. I mean, it's not, and you guys know that.
Say it again.
He's saying that in football, yeah, age matters a lot more than in baseball. Like a 30-year-old in baseball isn't necessarily old.
I agree with that. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying that I wanted to build a little more for the long term because I feel like those are going to be assets that are going to accrue value as opposed to lose them. Take Corey Seager. He's 29 years old. He's a great player. Ross, I think you had him number one in your shortstop rankings. I don't have him there because he doesn't run. But I'm thinking 3 years from now, he's going to be an asset that I'm going to be looking to unload in this league. So 3 years is a long time, though. You get a lot of success out of him. He got Julio Rodriguez. He's got Christian Encarnacion Strand, which as a Reds fan, I'm sure he's very excited about. Matt Olson's on the bench, but why? Look at this. Well, that means Ross is on his game. He could see, pulled him out. He played Salvador Perez there, and I think that's a good thing to do because you're getting value at that right away. Meanwhile, Will Smith has really had a strong start
and just signed a 10-year, $144 or $40 million extension.
How much? What is the Dodgers' payroll?
It's $1 billion.
Is it actually?
No, I don't know. It just feels like it's $1 billion.
I mean, it can't be $1 billion for a year, but it is a staggering amount. But he's got some young players. Pete Crow Armstrong.
I like his pitching, honestly.
Listen, I like his whole team. It's a very nice balance, Ross, because you've got young talent, you've got players that are already here, already have arrived. So you've got a potential win now team as well as talent. Let's take a look at the pitching. What do you like about the pitching, Casey?
Well, I mean, I think despite his first start, I think Yamamoto is a very good pitcher. Aaron Nola, we know, is reliable, dependable, a little bit older. Framber Valdez the same way. Eovaldi, again, he doesn't have a lot of like super young pitchers. Andrew Abbott is young, and Ross and I both really like him, but I'm not saying he's somebody you can rely on. But he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 closers in my estimation, with Hader, who's great, Iglesias, who's really strong, Lang or Langy, however he says it in Detroit. At least he's the closer and has been for more than a year, so he's got a leash. And I think Yuki Matsui is going to end up the closer in San Diego. So he's got a lot to work with.
Yeah, I mean, you already got 3 closers. So that's good, but potentially 4.
You know, and Yenier Cano was one of the most unhittable relief pitchers in baseball last year, with Bautista as the closer. And if Kimbrel struggles, Cano probably gets the run there to be the closer in Baltimore, which is a 100-win team.
Let me highlight one other thing right here. Alek Manoah. This is an interesting pickup.
It's a lottery ticket.
It's a lottery ticket, but he already showed that he could do it. I mean, this is the kind of lottery ticket you want in your team.
But if you look at the one in red, that's the other key. Walker Buehler could be back in a month and a half, and this guy has Cy Young stuff, and he's fully recovered from Tommy John, so he's got.
So I like this team. This team is a contender now and for later. So Ross, I think you did very well. Casey, should we move to yours?
Sure. Although I have to change my team name.
You got to change your team name because you didn't get Vlad.
Because Miguel took Vlad.
It was sad for all involved except for Miguel. Instead, you got the Italian breakfast, Vinny Pasquantino, who we all know.
Royce Lewis hit a home run.
Royce Lewis. You know,
unfortunately, it was off of my pitcher. So
if Royce Lewis stays healthy, he's going to be amazing. I hope he stays healthy, but he's got.
Other than Whit Merrifield, my team might be younger than yours, Dan.
Your team is pretty young, actually. Yeah. Oh,
actually,
yours is young. Yours is younger than mine.
I have Ohapi playing only because Alvarez's game was postponed.
Yeah. No, I think actually, at least you're on offense, you're younger than I am. And on pitching, you're probably younger than I am also. That's interesting because I have a pretty young team. All right, let's look at it though. You got O'Hop and Alvarez as your catchers. Pasquantino at first base, and Ross, feel free to jump in with any comments.
And Spencer Torkelson.
And Torkelson. All right, so between one of those two, you could have a breakout season coming, or maybe if you get it in both, you're in great shape.
Second base is where I'm a little weak. I have Hassan.
That's where everybody's weak.
And Edouard Julien. I still strongly believe Julien could be a top 10 second baseman. He's not starting because they're going against a lefty.
I liked the Julien pick a lot. He's kind of a post type sleeper. Obviously, you've got Soto and Tatis in the outfield. Evan Carter is a great pick. You know that I was thinking about
Cruz at shortstop.
You got, this is not surprising, but Ross, I think Casey has drafted on potential, which is what he often does. It's just huge potential guys.
Casey did a great job. I feel Casey's team will be in the top 5 for sure. And the only thing I'm worried about on his team is stolen bases. I mean, who's going to steal bases for you?
Well, Tatis.
Kim will, and Tatis.
Kim, Tatis, O'Neal Cruz.
Evan Carter actually should
Evan
be
Carter steals 20 bags. So, no, I don't have and I love that kid, Ceddanne Rafaela in Boston. If he gets a lot of playing time, he could be a base stealer. Cabrian Hayes chips in double-digit steals.
No, there
Anthony
you go.
Volpe. I have Anthony Volpe on my bench.
He also the great thing about a dynasty is he could deal for a guy who steals bases with draft picks next year. It doesn't even have to be from this year. Chris Atwater says, thinks Soto will be great in New York, though he will probably start a bit slow, like this roster moving forward. It certainly looks very good to me. I think it could be that you'll have some growing pains this particular year on offense. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't expect to win this year. Right, I expected to.
I didn't expect to win this year,
not to win. In the minors, I took Drew Jones, Andrew Jones's son, thinking he's 2 years out probably, but he could be, a stud. I love Drew Gilbert. I love Tyler Black. On the pitching side, Pablo Lopez and Cole Ragans are kind of who I'm building around. And on the pitching side, Trevor Bauer, I'm going to end up dropping. I was just hoping he'd get picked up.
Yeah, he just is the kind of elite talent that worth the flyer.
And I have Yuri Perez on the IL, who
I was very high on him.
Could end up being the best pitcher of all of them. So,
meanwhile, you've got Jordan Romano on the IR also, so that hurts you at the beginning. But you should be okay.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot of closers. I have Alzolay, I have Kenley Jansen, I have Clay Holmes.
But that's 3 already with Romano coming back. I think you're probably in similar shape to Ross because he's looking for Matsui to end up being a closer. I also like your Gavin Stone pickup. He's kind of a post-type sleeper because he didn't pitch so well last year. And
I did the same with Casey Mize because Casey Mize, I was reading, his velocity's up 3 miles an hour and he was striking a lot of people out in the spring. So that guy's a former #1 overall pick. I figured it was worth the spot at the end of the bench.
Yeah, now it's funny because Uncle Ted's not here with us live as he often is, but so I'm going to wait just to see if he shows up late. We can evaluate his team next. Let's go to, this is Ross's friend, Jason.
He drafted a win now offense and terrible pitching.
Yeah, look at the ages of the.
But look at the names: Harper, Betts, Machado, Turner, Arozarena. Like
this offense can win right now.
Right,
hands down.
Oh, he wants to win. He wants to win the league this year. He doesn't care about next year. And he's actually at the Dodger opening game right now.
He has Arenado.
He's at the Dodger game right now.
Yeah, but if you look at his pitching, he's not going to win. I like the guy, but
well, he could make adjustments, But I like Glasnow. I like Miller, and I actually do like Musgrove and Pepio. But there's not a lot of guys that you can rely on because Glasnow is very injury prone. Miller's,
I think Bobby Miller's his best pitcher. And I like Pepio this year, but
yeah, keep in mind he does have Sonny Gray on the bench, I think, and Dustin May. So he's got
on the IL, yeah.
Right, not on the bench, sorry, on the IR. But he could get there. He probably will need to make some adjustments. Now, if you look at his relief pitching, though, he's got Helsley and nobody else.
And Helsley is.
So this could be another one punting saves. And it also helps to explain why I have 6 closers.
Yeah.
All right. Chris Atwater says, I like Yuri Perez a lot and wanted to draft him, but I waited too long. I felt the same way. I was very high on him. And Case, that was a good snag by you. All right. So we think.
I mean, have you
this is
guys
someone.
seen the roster for Florida this year? The starters in positions. I mean, it looks like a
Yeah.
JV team. I mean, they're not a good team, guys. The Marlins have no hitting. Even Tim Anderson is not. I don't see
Well, they
him
have
having a
Luis
big year.
Arias
I
who'll
mean,
get on base a lot.
Oh, the
I
econ professor,
guess.
Tim Anderson.
Their pitching though is, I mean, even without Perez, it's still a good group.
You
Jesus
also
Luzardo.
never know.
I like
I
their
mean,
pitching. I'm not dishing their pitching at all, Case. I'm just saying their hitting and
Yeah.
their opening day roster is not good. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, I'm still baffled why they haven't traded from their bevy of pitching, because there's so many pitching desperate teams to get some real good young position players. Jazz Chisholm is great if he can stay healthy,
right.
you know.
But they could. And
Jake
also,
Berger, look, I like Jake Berger. He could put up 35 home runs from the third base position.
I think he's likely to, honestly.
But
The question is batting average.
They didn't keep Jorge Soler. They have Brian De La Cruz, who looks a lot like what was his name? Chris would know. Willie, the Willie Mopena from the Red Sox,
Right.
10,
right.
12 years ago, who would swing at everything. And if his bat made contact, it went a billion miles, but he would also miss by a billion miles sometimes.
Right. All right. So I think we were saying that Jason seems to have very, very good hitting. The question is his pitching. He'll probably need to make an adjustment. I'm going to go to my team now. I won't make that many comments, except I can tell you what my thinking was, but you guys go ahead and tell me what you think of the team.
Okay, let's. Why don't you tell us your players? I can't see from my TV.
Here, I'll read it off.
Okay.
Wilson Contreras, catcher. You want Bo Naylor to be the future. Wilson Contreras, you can count on him for 240, 20 home runs, 250, 20 home runs. Tristan Cassis, I think, is the guy you're building around. He's projected to be kind of that stud corner infielder. Not going to run, but he's going to hit for average power, driving runs. Ozzie Albies, to me, the best second baseman, so you can't go wrong there. Young, 27. Josh Jung is a stud. You know, if his shoulder didn't get hurt last year, he was rookie of the year. Losing Matt McClain for this year hurts.
Didn't I tell you watching him in both leagues was just automatic curse?
But having Correa as his replacement is not the end of the world. He just doesn't run. I love Riley Green, love Kyle Tucker, Jordan Walker. We know the potential is there. Michael Harris is a great pick. Your offense is good. James Wood on the in your minors is a great minor leaguer.
I also did get hurt by Noelvi Marte being suspended.
Right, and you have him coming back. And you have him coming back in July. Right. Alec Boehm is one of those ones who is just good old safe, right? He's a good one to have on your bench if you need a first or third baseman in a pinch. Curtis Mead, I don't know much about. I like Bo Naylor. On the pitching side, I'm worried about Snell because he started so late, but he's a Cy Young winner. Kevin Gossman is great. Your closers are loaded. Love Tanner Bybee. Christian Javier is good. Rodon is a wild card. Jose Alvarado could close. He and Robertson are very similar in that they could end up closing for their teams. McClanahan, when he comes back, great. Scherzer is a throwaway to me. I mean, he's a good one to have for when he comes back. Bradish.
The second half of the year, I think he could make a difference.
Bradish, again, if when he comes back, he can really help them. He can be a good for you too. And Andrew Painter is your hopefully stud in waiting there in the minor leagues for your pitching.
Right. And if you look, I mean, clearly where I loaded up on age was in pitching because
you don't believe in pitchers as true keepers.
Not really. I mean, they change so fast, they get injured so much that I just felt like if I can get a guy like Kevin Gossman at age 33, to me, is he really all that different than a 28-year-old pitcher who could just flame out really fast? So I decided I was going to go young on hitting, not worry about age too much on pitching, make sure I got my closers. But look, I need to remind myself of this every year. You look at your team, you evaluate it. You're like, yeah, this is the team I want. It looks great. And then everything changes. Valuation is going to change a lot. Chris Atwater says it is super strange to see Alex Verdugo in a Yankees uniform. As a Red Sox fan, I can certainly understand that. Then he said, "You're welcome, Casey," but I actually don't remember what that was in reference to.
That might have been either when he said he likes my team or that the Yankees have Alex Verdugo, although I'm not necessarily thanking you yet.
All right, so
who knows?
Before we move on from my team, is this a contender in the long run, in the short run, both?
I think it's definitely a contender in the long run. The short run,
I think I'm actually similar to you, Casey.
yeah,
like
you're in that
depends on
middling. If things break your way this year, you're contending this year. If Blake Snell pitches like he did last year, this year, you're contending this year. If Riley Green does what we expect him to do, or Tristan Cassis, those are Jordan Walker, the same boat I'm in. You have a few reliables in Albies and Michael Harris and Kyle Tucker. I think Correa is reliable, just not a stud anymore.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say this. If people out there are watching and they want their league evaluated, we'll do this. We'll go through and take a look at your teams and tell you who we think the contenders are. We're not just doing it for our purposes. This is just to discuss player valuations. All right. We got a couple teams left. This is Brad's team. Brad is from our old league.
His team is always good.
Always good. He's very, very shrewd. So first of all, I look at the hitting. I see one player over 30. It's Mitch Garver. So a lot of young players, but also a lot of studs. He just drafts really well. So what do we think about the offense? Ross, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, why don't you name some of the players he has? I'll tell you yay or nay. Or
Austin Riley at third base. We got Nolan Jones at first. Jazz Chisholm at second. Bo Bichette at shortstop. Jordan Alvarez in the outfield. Luis Robert. Then you got Santander, Gleyber Torres, and Mitch Garver. And then a bunch of young guys behind. Jordan Westberg, Brett Baty.
Yeah, I mean, Robert to me is a question mark this year. I don't know what Robert will get. Will he play? Will he get hurt? Will he hit home runs? Last year he hit home runs. Year before he didn't. It just depends what kind of year he has. I mean, I do like some of his players. I think there's some question marks on his team. I think some of his players are injury prone. I like his team, but I have some questions about it. But all right. I do think he did draft well. You guys are right.
I think Colton Cowser in the minors is a good pick also. So now here's his starting pitching. Jesus Luzardo, Shane Bieber, let's see, Hunter Brown, Freddie Peralta, Freddie Peralta and Zach Wheeler on the bench. It looked like he was thin at pitching. Then I got to the end here. I still think he's a little thin on pitching, actually, but in
starting he's a little thin, but.
Again,
go ahead.
I just feel his team overall, he drafted well. He has some really good starters. I mean, it's a top 5 starter. I mean, he's terrific. But again, we'll see how he does. I just don't know if
he's got enough
other players to compete.
I just think, and I know Brad well, he's got enough to compete. He's got enough to compete this year, and he's built for the long term. I like the team overall. Okay, let's move to another team. We're gonna move.
There's really no bad team. I mean, overall, like we've been talking about.
You have to remember, guys, it
is a 10-team league.
It's a 10-team league. That's what I was going to point out.
All right, now we move to Johnny's team. We've got Adley Rutschman at catcher, Christian Walker at first base. Yes, he's not Jewish. Zach Geloff at second base, Gunnar Henderson at third base, CJ Abrams at short. In the outfield, he has Mike Trout, MJ Melendez, Nick Senzel. I think he's a little young and unproven in some of these spots. He's got Reese Hoskins. I like that. Nolan Gorman. I like Estuary Ruiz. That's going to help him a lot in the stolen base department. But I do think I don't think he's ready to compete this year with this offense. That's my estimation. He's very young, which I think is good for this kind of league. But it looks like he may have some struggle on offense. Case, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I mean, I like CJ Abrams. I like Adley Rutschman. I like Gunnar Henderson. Those are ones you can rely on. Mike Trout, if he stays healthy, we all know what the potential is there. But Christian Walker has been reliable. I mean, he's older, but he's been reliable the last 3 seasons. So he has too many question marks, I think, at starting. I mean, but he could.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ruiz should be starting in the outfield most of the time. And, he just has some question marks. Let's look at his pitching. Kirby, Spencer Strider, that's good. Corbin
Kirby and
Burns,
Strider are
Luis
great.
Castillo. I mean, he's got great pitching.
His starting
Strider
pitching
and
is
Burns, that's
legit.
a good 1-2 punch. That's
Yeah, and he's
legit.
got Ohtani coming back next year, assuming he does come back to pitching. Justin Steele, that's good. Looks like for closer, he's got Munoz, and that's it.
Who's hurt?
Yeah, Munoz is hurt. Yeah, although I don't think he's on the IL, is he? Anyways,
we won't know till today.
Right. He's
The
got one
ILs
close.
don't come out till game time.
So, he's got very strong pitching. I think if I were him, I'd want to even out his hitting a little bit. But I think any team in this league can be a contender. It's a 10-team league. You can compete in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
We'll get to Uncle Ted's now. Sorry you're not here to see this, Uncle Ted, but hopefully you'll watch it on replay. Okay. Now, Uncle Ted drafted Win now for sure. If you look at his team, he has in his starting team, he has only 3 players under 30.
Yeah.
He's got Real Muto at catcher. He's got Pete Alonso at first base, and he's 29. Marcus Semien. Alex Bregman is 29. Francisco Lindor is 30. Corbin Carroll's his young stud. Adolis Garcia, Aaron Judge. I mean, this team should win the offensive category.
If they don't win, he's in deep trouble.
Deep trouble because he's spent so much of his capital on this early time. I'm looking in 2 years, he could be in rebuilding mode. Hard to say. Let's see his pitching. We got Dylan Cease, Zach Eflin. I'm looking for his ace. Where are you? I'm not finding him. Well, Justin Verlander and Kershaw could be aces of sorts, but I'm seeing there's potential pitchers in here, but I don't see a lot of solidity here.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Meanwhile, at closer, he's got Bednar and Duvall. That's fantastic. He's got Payamps coming in. So he's probably okay at closer. I think starting pitching and age are the 2 weaknesses of this team, but it's a very strong team because his hitting is out of control.
His offense is good. His hitting, I'm not sold on. I think some of his pitchers, a lot of question marks, but his hitters are good. He should trade for some number 1 starters. That's I think he should do immediately. Yeah,
and I would trade an older starter, Aaron Judge, Adolis Garcia, something like that. He doesn't have much on the bench to back him up. But, you could make a trade for a pitcher and a hitter. So anybody can compete in this league, but there are some adjustments that I think need to be made. We'll finish up on the last team we have not analyzed. This is Uncle Ted's friend, Greg. Yainer Diaz at catcher, Freddie Freeman at first base, Luis Arias at second, Jose Ramirez at third, Xander Bogaerts at short, outfield of Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber. Oh, no, not yet. Seiya Suzuki. Jose Altuve is currently on the bench. That's interesting. I would expect him to be starting. Leody Taveras I like on the bench. Let's see. Oh, he's got JD Martinez coming back. So, this is a strong potential team on offense in certain ways, but not quite. Given that he drafted some older players,
he doesn't have.
I like
speed.
Uncle Ted's hitters better than these,
and he doesn't have speed.
He does not have speed,
other than Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, and that's not providing a ton of. Well, Leody Taveras could provide some speed, but not a whole lot. Okay, now pitching. You guys know I love Zach Gallen.
He got screwed because of Garrett Cole, by the way. Garrett Cole was his first-round pick.
That's okay. That's pretty damaging. He's got DeGrom waiting in the wings. Paul Sewald went out also, so he's had some tough injury news since the draft. So he was kind of quite well balanced actually before that. I think, although I'm looking at closers. Where are the closers?
Well, you'd have Sewald, Tanner, and Tanner Scott.
Sewald
That's not a closer.
And Tanner Scott, just the 2?
That's
okay, so with Sewald injured, he's probably going to need a deal for somebody. So, this is going to be a very interesting league.
I mean, you can't punt saves. You can't do it.
Not this early.
We have a comment. Daniel Walsh says, "The boss, my man." Do you guys know what that's in reference to? I missed the reference.
I did not.
Well, Daniel, speak up. Let us know what it was in reference to. Sorry, we missed that. I didn't see any Bruce Springsteen.
It's a Ross the Boss comment. I have fans around the country.
Ross.
Daniel Walsh He's a big White Sox fan. He lives in Rockford, Illinois. He writes me all the time for fantasy advice. He's one of the best in the country. Unbelievable. But yes, Daniel, I am the boss. Keep going.
Well, we've finished up our analysis of that, but as I said, if you guys want your league analyzed in this way, because it's a really fun way to look at player valuation, and player valuation is going to change a lot in these coming weeks. In 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we're going to look back at all of these evaluations and be like, oh my God, I was completely wrong about this, and we're going to be wrong about a ton of stuff. Happens every year.
I'm never wrong. That's the crazy thing, guys. I never get anything wrong. It's unbelievable.
I know when you won't admit you were wrong, you're never wrong. It's true. I'm kidding.
never
You're
wrong.
actually quite good. Well,
Ask
you're
Casey.
both quite good. No, I've been here the whole time, Ross. I don't even need to ask you. You guys both look good. The league is strong. It's going to be a bloodbath. We'll see how it goes, guys. Every week we've got a show with Casey and Ross. This is the waiver wire show. It's starting next week because, of course, now the games are going. They'll be letting you know what players to be picking up and targeting. They will factor. They won't just be analyzing from a 10-team league standpoint either. So they'll help you with the pickups. This Thursday show, both shows are 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. This show is more about strategy and overall player evaluation. And of course, if you have questions, we will help you evaluate if you want to do a trade, if you're thinking about who to get on the wire. And we just want to help you think it through. We also will have some players being highlighted for pickups each week. And we have some evergreens that really just are about strategy of the game overall. So tune in, check it out. Casey, Ross, it has been a pleasure. And we will see you.
Pleasure. Before we leave, I want to give some updates on scores. The Cincinnati Reds 3, Washington Nationals nothing. Also, the New York Yankees started the season with a big bang with no runs, and the Houston Astros have 4 runs. So 4-0 Houston, and the Reds are up 3-0.
That's what you get when you pitch Luigi from the Mario Brothers on opening day.
He's going to turn into a Goomba. All right, guys. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to next week. Guys, enjoy your Tuesday show. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Please do leave comments, and we look forward to hearing from you.